The mint presses thundered in unison through the winter of 1973, churning out millions of coins to fuel the needs of a growing American economy. Among the clatter and precision of steel machinery, the Kennedy half-dollar stood apart, larger than its siblings in size, heavier in weight, and more iconic in symbolism. Struck to honor the memory of a fallen president, the coin had been a regular part of the U.S. Mint's output since 1964. But in 1973, something changed, not in the design, but in what would slip, undetected, through the cracks of the mint's perfection. The year marked a shift. Though tens of millions of half-dollars were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, not a single one was released into general circulation. The government had made the decision to restrict these coins to collector sets only. Regular Americans wouldn't see them in their change. Most didn't even know they existed. They were tucked away in mint-issued sets, wrapped in cellophane, protected from time. But even then, errors don't ask permission. Somewhere along the line, perhaps on the Denver mint floor, a die went slightly awry. A misalignment, a minute crack, or a lapse in quality control. No one noticed at first. These were half-dollars destined for proof-like presentation, so expectations for flawlessness were higher. Still, errors happen when they're least expected. Years passed before the whispers began. Collectors flipping through their 1973 mint sets noticed anomalies, tiny details that didn't align with the standard. One half-dollar, in particular, caught attention with what looked like a doubling of the date. Not prominent, not glaring, but unmistakable under magnification. The three seemed to have a shadow, as if it had been struck twice by a ghostly echo of the die. This was no random damage from circulation. These coins had never seen a register drawer. It took the keen eyes of a Missouri-based numismatist named Carl Thomas to truly understand what he had. His life revolved around mint sets and die varieties. He trained himself to see what most people overlooked. While cataloging his 1973 Kennedy half-dollars, one coin stopped him cold. The date was slightly off. The motto, "In God We Trust," appeared doubled. Not dramatic, but enough to stir a feeling in his gut, a feeling he'd learned not to ignore. He submitted the coin to a grading service. It came back with a designation that would alter its future, DDO, double die obverse. From that point, the story began to spread. Not all 1973 half-dollars bore this error. In fact, it seemed astonishingly rare. Only a small batch appeared to have been struck using the defective die before it was replaced. And because these coins were only available in mint sets, their numbers were already limited. They hadn't been handled. No circulation wear. Just quiet preservation in plastic sleeves, waiting to be noticed. Other collectors began scouring their sets. Coin forums lit up with comparisons, photos, debates. Was it true doubling? Could it be mechanical? The grading services confirmed it again and again. It was real, and it was rare. But then another layer emerged. In late 2021, a collector stumbled upon a 1973 half-dollar that displayed doubling not just on the obverse, but on the reverse. The legends around the eagle's shield showed slight shadowing. United States of America looked as if it had been stamped with a quivering hand. At first, many suspected it was a trick of lighting or minor die fatigue. But upon third-party grading, it was classified as a previously undocumented reverse double die, making it potentially unique. The buzz was electric. Could there be more out there? Was there an entire class of 1973 half-dollars that had slipped through unnoticed, shielded by the obscurity of their packaging? Carl watched with a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. He'd kept his discovery quiet for years, unsure how to prove its rarity. Now, others were validating what he had long suspected. 1973 was not the sterile, uneventful year most had assumed. As awareness grew, so did demand. What had once been dismissed as a standard mint set half-dollar now sparked bidding wars. At first, collectors paid premiums of $100, then $300 for confirmed double die specimens. But pristine examples, untouched by time, especially those with both obverse and reverse anomalies, drew a different crowd. Serious investors who understood the power of provenance. By 2023, the market had stratified. Double die coins in MS65 condition hovered around $1 500. MS66 examples pushed past $2 800. But one MS67 obverse DDO, verified as one of only 3 known, was auctioned for a jaw-dropping $9 200. Then came the lightning strike. In March 2025, a coin dealer based in San Diego received an anonymous consignment, a 1973 D Kennedy $half, pulled directly from an unopened U.S. Mint set that had sat in a storage unit for over 40 years. It had never been handled. Upon review, the coin was flawless. Under magnification, the doubling was clear, both on the obverse and reverse. The dealer, stunned, sent it for immediate grading. It returned with a grade of MS68, the highest known for a 1973 error of its kind. Welcome back to my channel. In a hushed, invitation-only auction held in New York City, the coin's bidding opened at $25,000. The room was filled with numismatic elite, museum curators, institutional buyers, private collectors. Bids rose quickly, the room tense with anticipation. Each new offer was met with silence, then escalation. And finally, when the bidding stopped, the hammer fell. The final price $121,000. A single $half, never meant for circulation, never seen by the public until long after the minting had stopped. A coin that slipped through unnoticed, that lived quietly in cellophane while the decades passed. And then, when time had forgotten it, it spoke. The 1973 Kennedy $half, an icon of American memory, a vessel of quiet dignity, and now, for one lucky collector, a piece of history worth over $100,000. The presses rolled on relentlessly in the summer of 1982, churning out coinage for an America on the edge of economic transition. Recession loomed over the country like a shadow, and every cent mattered. The U.S. Mint, under pressure to reduce costs, began experimenting with changes across denominations. But one coin, the Kennedy $half, remained largely untouched in terms of design, at least officially. Still, the year would mark a moment few would notice at the time, one that would send faint ripples across the numismatic world for decades. Fewer $half were minted that year. Demand for the denomination had plummeted. Most Americans no longer carried them, and banks rarely ordered them. Yet the mint pushed forward, producing Kennedy $half in limited numbers, primarily for collectors and specialized distribution. No proof versions were issued in 1982, a decision driven by budget constraints and shifting priorities. It was a subtle, bureaucratic change, but it set the stage for something unintended. At the Philadelphia Mint, where precision and timing defined everything, something slipped. A die, possibly reused longer than standard protocol allowed, began showing signs of fatigue. Hairline cracks formed, microscopic at first, but they left behind telltale signs. One such coin, struck during that period, would not be noticed until decades later. In a small coin shop in Pennsylvania, a collector named Jerome Fielder was going through a forgotten box of circulated $half purchased in bulk. He wasn't hunting for treasure, just filling gaps in a friend's album. But habit kept him alert. As he turned over one of the coins, something didn't sit right. The details were muddled. Not the typical wear from handling, but rather something embedded in the strike itself. The date, 1982, looked weak, as if part of it had been ghosted. Liberty wasn't crisp, especially near the B and E, and Kennedy's jawline appeared abnormally flat. At first, Jerome assumed it was damage, but as he pulled out his loupe, he noticed faint doubling around the word, trust, and a strange die crack curving down from Kennedy's hair toward the collar. This wasn't just wear. This was something more. Word began to spread. Others started examining their 1982 $half and reporting similar die characteristics. In particular, coins from the Philadelphia Mint bore the signs: die fatigue, minor doubling, die cracks. But these weren't uniform. Each coin seemed to have a slightly different error signature, suggesting that more than one flawed die had been used during the run. The situation became even more intriguing when a small number of 1982 half dollars surfaced with no mint mark at all. At first, this caused confusion. Philadelphia coins were traditionally produced without mint marks, but some had been struck at Denver that year. The mystery deepened when a known Denver coin, clearly struck with a D mint mark, was discovered to have a faint, almost vanishing mint mark, as though it had been improperly applied or even partially polished off. These inconsistencies hinted at either a rushed production process or a lack of oversight, both of which aligned with the mint's austerity measures at the time. Collectors began referring to these error coins informally as Ghost 82s. Some displayed obverse doubling on the motto, others bore retained die breaks on Kennedy's profile. A few rare examples even showed what appeared to be an overpolished die effect, removing details entirely from parts of the coin. One had Kennedy's hairline nearly flattened, as though his features had faded into the field of the coin. Grading services took note. Submissions of 1982 half dollars began increasing. What was once dismissed as a dull, common coin from a low mintage year was now under microscopic scrutiny. And with that attention came a surge in value. By 2015, attributed error coins from 1982 were drawing more attention at auctions. Examples with heavy obverse doubling or distinct die breaks fetched modest premiums: $100, $200, even $450 for pieces in uncirculated condition. As collectors grew more aware, the market began differentiating between simple wear and actual minting anomalies. But then came the unexpected find. In 2022, a West Coast dealer acquired an original bank-wrapped roll of 1982 half dollars, never opened since the year of issue. After carefully unrolling it, he spotted one coin that stood out immediately. It bore a deep, retained cut on the reverse. An area near the eagle's wing was entirely flattened, the result of a die chip so severe it disrupted the design itself. The obverse showed sharp doubling on "In God We Trust," with a prominent die crack stretching from Kennedy's temple to his ear. The coin was submitted for grading. Experts were stunned. It was not only an error, it was pristine. A survivor in MS-67 condition, with a dramatic, eye-visible flaw and untouched surfaces. The grading service labeled it as a major retained cut error with obverse doubling, the first of its kind confirmed for that year. The news circulated quickly among error specialists. The coin was listed at auction in early 2024, with an opening bid of $15,000. Collectors from across the country registered to participate. Phone lines buzzed, internet bids poured in, and the numbers climbed. When the final gavel dropped, the coin had fetched a staggering $116,000, a half dollar once produced during a cost-cutting year, forgotten in a bank roll, casually dismissed for decades. A coin struck at a time when proof issues were halted, dies stretched past their limits, and quality control loosened to save money. And in that margin of neglect, something extraordinary was born. The 1982 Kennedy half dollar, never celebrated, never spotlighted, never even meant to be anything more than a footnote in numismatic history, had quietly become a six-figure legend. And for one lucky collector, a reminder that even the most overlooked coin can carry a secret worth $116,000. In 2021, the coin presses at the U.S. Mint came to life once more, producing a coin that most Americans barely noticed, the Kennedy half dollar. It was no longer the everyday piece of circulating currency it had once been in the 1960s. Instead, it had become a coin issued primarily for collectors, minted in much smaller quantities, quietly continuing its legacy in proof sets, uncirculated rolls, and bags, quietly, but not flawlessly. The country was emerging from the peak of a global crisis. Supply chains were fractured, schedules altered, and staffing levels inconsistent across federal institutions. Even the mint wasn't immune. And while coins were still being struck to meet demand, especially in lower denominations due to a national coin shortage, the half-dollar remained a curiosity, minted, distributed selectively, and largely left out of cash drawers and vending machines. Inside the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities producing coins for circulation, a routine run of Kennedy half-dollars began as scheduled in early spring. But what no one knew, at least not right away, was that one die in particular was slightly misaligned. It wasn't catastrophic. The press didn't jam. The coins didn't double or shatter. Instead, it was something more subtle, something easily overlooked unless you were trained to look for the smallest of anomalies. Several weeks later, a collector named Clarissa Mullins in Colorado, known for her fascination with modern U.S. coinage, picked up a few rolls of 2021 half-dollars from her local bank, a rare find. She didn't expect anything unusual. But out of habit, she laid the coins out on a velvet tray and began inspecting them with her 10x magnifier. Then she saw a dot on one coin. The rim on the obverse looked slightly thicker than usual, just near the word Liberty. A closer look revealed that Kennedy's portrait was shifted ever so slightly to the right. It wasn't just off-center, it was misaligned. The reverse of the coin, meanwhile, appeared perfectly centered. It was a classic case of die misalignment, but only on one side. Clarissa dug deeper. She found another with a similar tilt. Then another, this time showing not just a shift, but also weakness in the strike near Kennedy's neck. She cross-checked with reference guides and couldn't find anything official about errors from 2021. No listings. No known misalignments. She contacted a few collectors online, shared photos, and soon a wave of responses came in. Others had noticed oddities too. Not many, but enough to confirm this wasn't isolated. The error was subtle yet unique. A one-sided die misalignment affecting only the obverse, leaving the reverse sharp and intact. It suggested a minor issue with the obverse die seating or pressure application during striking. But that wasn't all. One coin, in particular, stood out among Clarissa's batch. Not only did it show the obverse shift, but there was a faint doubling around the motto, "In God We Trust." Under magnification, the letters appeared to shadow themselves, a telltale sign of hub doubling. This combination, die misalignment paired with doubling, was unheard of in any modern Kennedy half-dollar from 2021. She sent the coin to a grading service, which confirmed the anomaly. It was cataloged as a dual error, obverse die misalignment with minor hub doubling. The coin graded MS-66. News traveled quickly through numismatic forums and error specialist groups. A coin from the most recent run, barely out of the mint, was being recognized not just for a production error, but for one that hadn't yet made it into official guides. Collectors began reevaluating their 2021 half-dollar rolls. Suddenly, demand spiked. Coin dealers, who previously couldn't move half-dollar rolls at face value, were now fielding calls for them from across the country. Videos surfaced of hobbyists dissecting bags, comparing mint marks, weighing specimens, measuring alignment against reference templates. Then came the wild card. A dealer in New Mexico, scanning a shipment of 2021 Kennedy halves sourced directly from the Philadelphia Mint, discovered a coin with an entirely different error, a struck-through thread embedded in the obverse. Lodged across Kennedy's cheek, the impression of the fiber was clearly visible and left behind a distinctive trench in the metal. The reverse was unaffected. Upon authentication, it was determined that the fiber had likely come from a cloth used during die maintenance or cleaning. This kind of foreign material error was rare, especially on a coin so recent and in such high condition. It was submitted for auction under the radar. No one expected much. A modern coin, a common design, barely circulated, with an obscure error. But once listed, the buzz from collectors who knew the significance triggered a bidding war. It wasn't just about the fiber. It was about what the coin represented, a flaw in modern production, a sign that even with today's technology, imperfection still found a way in. The coin sold for $82,000 in less than 2 years. The 2021 Kennedy half-dollar had gone from collector filler to auction centerpiece. Its clean, polished surfaces became a canvas for unusual flaws, misalignments, doubling, struck-throughs, that defied the expectations of a modern mint. And while millions of them were still out there, the specific errors, the subtle ones missed by machine and man alike, remained locked in rolls, hidden in drawers, or passed unknowingly in hand-to-hand transactions. It was never supposed to be extraordinary. It was minted out of tradition, not demand. Yet the 2021 half-dollar proves something. Even in a time of precision, in a year marked by routine and recovery, chance still had its way. One die just slightly out of place, one thread slipping in where it shouldn't have been, and suddenly, a coin meant to be ordinary was worth $82,000.